Hey, what's up guys? This is Lit Canvas Productions bringing you another Lightroom tutorial. Today we're going to be going over the basic and tone curve workflow tabs. Give you this effect right here to add a little color, vibrance, and make your photo pop a little more. Okay, so we've uploaded our photo into Lightroom here, and first off, noticing the histogram looks pretty evenly distributed with color. So we got a good start here, but overall the image is still pretty dull. So first thing we're going to do is go over here to the basic tab. It's the first tab here. Click the down arrow and you have a whole bunch of different options here. You have the temperature, tint, white balance correction, you have exposure, contrast, the highlights, shadows, clarity, and vibrance, things like that. So the first thing I like to do here, guys, and this is just personal preference, you don't have to follow this workflow. I generally like to bring down the highlights and go up with the shadows. I don't usually, unless I'm going for that effect, max these out. So just kind of what looks good to the eye there. So bring up the shadows. As far as the whites go, I'd like to have my whites be really white, so click and hold over the slider tab here and press the option key. If you drag it to the right, that will start to show little areas in the image. Basically that would be clipped if you had the whites at that value. So you want to take it to a value that has nothing on the screen or just very little, and it's pretty much going to be close to zero. So about +4 right there. Blacks, you can do the same. Hold the option key, bring it down, and I like to have my blacks, nice and dark. So this one I'm going to go about -50 there. So we've hit the highlight, shadows, whites, and blacks. Next thing we're going to do, go down here to presence and adjust the clarity. I like to go up and down, and on this particular image I'm going to add a little bit of clarity. I think that's going to help the image pop a little more, to about 25. Then go up to contrast, do the same thing. Contrast definitely wants some plus, and that is definitely adding some separation of lights and darks there, so you got a nice pop in your image. Vibrance is a pretty powerful tool. So you can sit here and play with it and do all kinds of things to adjust your image there. I don't really, on this particular image, because it is so color heavy, I like to go about +18 there, and then saturation. Be careful with saturation, you don't overdo it. So on this I'm going to do about +4. So all we've done here, guys, is mess with the basic tab. I mean, that took maybe a minute to do. And as you can see here, the before and after already, before even hitting the tone curve adjustments, there's a huge difference here. So next thing we'll do is go over here to the tone curve tab, which is right below the basic. Open that up. On this one, I usually like to have a nice S curve with the highlights. What this does, it affects the highlights and the shadows really. Have a nice little S curve bringing up the highlights and the lights, and generally down with the darks and shadows. So first thing, let's start with the highlights. Personal preference, guys, but again, adjust them to your liking, what you're going for in the image. On this, I'm going to bring the highlights up just a bit and the lights as well. After I bring them up, I will usually dial them back just a little bit. Alright, right there looks good. Darks, do the same thing, and that just adds more contrast to the image, guys, which makes it pop out a little more. Bring them up, and then I like to dial them back just a little more to about -10 for the shadows, -8 for the darks. So thanks for checking out this week's tutorial. Make sure you check us out next week, where we will be going over some advanced color correction and getting a little more detailed with the workflow.